ReZero Starting Life in Another World Volume X5, The Tale of the Scarlet Princess. Once again, this cover is not so much an artistic statement as it is a marketing exercise with a bunch of cool characters on the cover, and surely one of them will catch the reader's attention. With Priscilla taking center stage, literally and metaphorically, and Serena's commanding body language, I will say these two characters are the ones who take up the most attention on this cover. Attention that is taken away from some other characters like this one here in the background. Originally, when I saw this cover, because of the way it's printed, his hair looks blue-ish, and so I thought, wow, maybe this is Cecila's dad, now that must be awesome. I was very hyped, and only way too late into the book did I realize, wait, I recognize this yellow unkept clothing. This is Al, and obviously it's Al. It's very funny to me that I missed the most obvious character to be in a side story related to Priscilla, but in my mind Al's face is disfigured, so it didn't quite fit my mental image, but obviously this is a prequel, so whatever cosmetic accident befell Al, maybe it didn't happen here yet. Not to mention that they do this thing on purpose where they don't put Al on the character intros so as not to reveal his face. Much like X4, X5 has 4 pages of character intros followed by a bombshell artwork. They once again introduce Arakia, and she's actually in the book this time. Wow, I'm so impressed. But jokes aside, her power is super cool. Being a spirit eater is very cool. I love the way her power is so versatile and strong, and she seems like a hard counter to both Julius and Subaru, which makes me think there may be a bad ending in the future where she will eat Beatrice, and I really hope, please, don't do this to me, man. Just don't. My heart can't take it. Just please. And despite being portrayed as decently competent in this book, Miles is once again introduced and his character design is still that one of a slimy villain, which is funny in the context of this book. This looks like a character design more appropriate for X1 than X5, but still I digress. I will remember this name now because it's so uncharacteristically average for a character like this that now it just sticks in my memory. Miles, the legend. Just like X4, X5 also has a bombshell artwork. In X4, we were immediately interested by Dragon Sword Reed being used, and here we see that our favorite authoritarian brat Vincent is actually brothers with Prisca, or Priscilla as we know her. When I compared the two in my last video, I didn't think they were actually siblings, but it makes sense seeing as he's perhaps a less arrogant version than Priscilla, but they are both very similar in a lot of ways. Because I'm following with the physical Yen Press translations, this makes it so I'm reading X5 after volume 21, so before the finish of Arc 6. Because Arc 6 seems to be focused around the members of the Emilia camp, as well as Anastasia and Julius, I don't think that there's really a problem here. Technically, X5 is a side story, so you should be able to read it anytime after volume 4, where Priscilla is introduced. In my opinion, reading X5 in this timing didn't really spoil or ruin anything for me. I thought it was very interesting. If anything, I'm now more hyped to see whenever Priscilla goes back to Wallachia, so there's that. One thing I noticed is that after the author indulged in some Wilhelm prequels, Wilhelm is clearly one of his favorite characters, or at least one of his favorite characters to write about. X4 and X5 have increasingly become more main story relevant. I would go as far as to say that X5 feels like mandatory reading for ReZero fans. You could maybe kind of get away with skipping X4, and I may regret this whenever we get to the Wallachia arc, but X5 feels very relevant because of the things we learn about Al and Priscilla. I'll start by saying that I think X5 is great. However, there was one thing I hated. It felt like such bad writing, and that was the double cross on the encirclement between Lamia and Vincent. There's a big problem in fiction when authors try to write very intelligent characters that can often result in two scenarios. The first is we dumb down the intelligence of the rest of the cast, making the character surrounded by bumbling idiots, in which case he also doesn't look very intelligent as there's just no competition. The second is the author will write a super convoluted, overly convenient 9000 IQ gigabrain master plan where you activated my trap card and I counter the counter to your counter. In the words, or translated words, of the famous Joseph Joestar, you may have outsmarted me, but I have outsmarted your outsmarting. And the latter is exactly what happens in this first chapter. So let me get this straight. The siblings who Lamia recruited were on Vincent's side the whole time. So why was there any necessity of putting himself at risk and putting his people at risk and relying on Arakia's power to stop the magic cannon blast? It just seems so unnecessary. And how did he know Arakia was able to do that, by the way? Intelligence in fiction is often confused with this omniscient access to information you shouldn't be able to have. And why did Vincent risk Shisha Gold fighting Arakia when Shisha Gold isn't a fighter and he could have lost him? And he did get injured out of all of this, and there was never a clear reason as to why this had to be done. The easy, safe, smart thing to do would be to revert the encirclement on Lamia as soon as the battle started, sparing Vincent's troops and then using someone indetectable and capable, like Cecilus for example, to flank Lamia from behind to prevent her from escaping. That would be quick, simple, effective and smart. If you already have the military and geographical advantage, it makes no sense from a strategic point of view to risk this ham-fisted plan that puts you in danger. And if you truly wanted to do something mega gigabrained or something, they could have just done something flashy, like for example tampered with the magic cannon, so when she activated it, it just blew up in their face. Now that would be smart and kind of cool. This here didn't seem smart to me. It seemed like Vincent abusing plot armor to try and look smart for the reader. It just wasn't very convincing. In X4 there's a very similar situation, but there Vincent took the proper precautions, like for example, trusting Balroy to hit him on a non-vital spot, and being accompanied by what he knows is one of the best healers in the world. The entire time the 9 generals of Wallachia are on the chase, so he knows that even if the plan fails, he will likely be able to eliminate some important knights from the rival nation of Lugunica, or just simply tell the generals to stop and reassess the plan from there. Upon looking back on X4, Vincent there came out looking like a genius because he was always in control, and no matter what happened, it was always advantageous for him. Here, not so much. He wasted troops, put Shisha at risk, put himself at risk, had to trust Arakia, who's not even a servant of his. It just seems so convoluted. The whole encirclement scene was just stupid. It's definitely a stain on an otherwise great book. I love ReZero, but I have to say this has got to be one of the top 5 worst written ReZero scenes. If it wasn't for Cecilus just styling on everyone, this scene would have been unredeemable. Anyway, am I being too harsh on this scene? Did you actually like it? Leave it in the comments below. Now, for the positive things, I keep saying Prisca, or Priscilla as we know her, has this strange charisma that just transcends fiction. She's so arrogant, and yet I can't help but be so entertained by her even as a child because she's just so fearless and confident. She's constantly reiterating her motto of "the world bends itself to suit me," and this is even after she lost the throne to Vincent. It seems like nothing phases her. She will keep being who she is until the very end. Her only moments of genuine emotion were when she saved Arakia from the poison, and here you could argue she was already checkmated, and when she finally shows some appreciation towards Jorah at the end of the book. Besides those two moments, Priscilla is always the Priscilla that we know and love. Sassy, bossy and cocky. She's not some girl who was traumatized into wearing this mask of arrogance and distancing herself from others. Oh no, she genuinely believes that she is better than everyone else and that the world bends itself to suit her. I find it very amusing that because Priscilla is so intense of a character, she always needs a more chill character to balance things out. First it was Arakia, then it was Jorah, then Balroy at some point, and in the present day it's Al. There's always a more chill guy to cool down the fiery demeanor of Priscilla. My favorite Priscilla line is this one. "I advise you to move aside, peasants. I'm here to retrieve my husband." She is a hostage at this point, as well as her husband, and yet she just moves around like she owns the place and everybody is her servant. Priscilla is just great. She's so funny. One thing I also found super funny was Priscilla's speech and how much of a contrast it is to Subaru's speech in Arc 5. I think the author did this on purpose, as I went and checked the issue numbers and I'm pretty sure this was written after Arc 5 was completed. Remember in Arc 5 where Subaru has this very emotional, beautiful speech where he connects with the people of Priscilla by displaying his own vulnerabilities and then encourages them not to give up? Priscilla also has her open mic moment and things go very differently from Subaru's. She says things like this. "Hear me, you sword slave rabble. There is no future for your uprising. Only death awaits you fools. In isolation, this is just another Priscilla moment, but in the context of ReZero, contrasting with Subaru's speech just cracked me up. We see that Priscilla has some degree of affection towards Vincent and Arakia, so she is capable of human emotion, and I look forward to the day when she finally comes back to Wallachia. And of course, X5 also features the man, the myth, the legend, Al, the man with one arm and no helmet this time. Al's whole story is the perfect display of the author's ability to relay information to us while leaving us with even more questions. First, Al seems to have some sort of trauma with a silver-haired girl. Second, he has a sensei, and that's interesting. And finally, he says this very interesting line. You don't really believe you're the strongest in the whole world, do you? The strongest person I know about in this world is walking around Lugunica with an elementary schooler's backpack right about now. The first thought the reader has is Reinhardt, as it fits the age description, and maybe Al met him and he's the strongest character in the ReZero universe, but I present to you my half-baked theory. What if he's referring to Rum? Rum is about the same age, he confused Rem with Rum back in volume 5, and he apparently knows the witch cult and perhaps even the witch, so maybe he's related with them. Maybe Al was part of the attack on the Oni village, and so he recognizes Rum as this very strong, almost divine entity because he met her before she lost her horn. Or maybe he met Gluttony, who we also alluded to meeting back in Arc 5, and Gluttony isn't a kid, I think, but looks like one, and he also fits the bill. Maybe the answer is just the obvious Reinhardt, and maybe you web novel readers are laughing at me right now in the comments, but you know, it's all in good fun. These were just some names off the top of my head. Much like in Arc 5, X5 shows Al's personality as this jaded and disillusioned individual, saying things like this. Dreams are for when you're sleeping, not for when you're awake, damned idiot. Al comes off as someone who has completely given up but for some reason keeps going. He doesn't show any interest in the revolution, and when he has the opportunity to leave Gladiator Island at the end of the chapter, he doesn't, in a decision that really surprised me. I thought that when he was offered freedom he would take it, but maybe he doesn't want to take his freedom. Maybe he's punishing himself for something he regrets, and that's why he stays on Gladiator Island. I don't really see what else he could be doing there. And if it wasn't obvious from Arc 5, X5 slaps you in the face with the fact that Al can also time travel, but unlike Subaru, his power seems a bit different. His power is less versatile and I would say much more cruel to the user. Because he resets in a much shorter time span, it may be more useful for fights, but it also makes it so that he's stuck in the fight and sometimes has to reset countless times. And this becomes a very big problem when he's stuck with an enemy like the Hornet, who's just stronger and more skilled, and so no matter how many times he tries, he just can't beat him. And as was confirmed by Arakia, Al is not a very capable fighter. He's about average and has reached his limit in the skill with the sword. So while we still don't know much about Al, this book made it easier to understand him in a way. Just in the fight with the Hornet, he reset more times than Subaru in 5 story arcs. He just goes through so much that he's just numb. He doesn't have that spark of naivety and hope like Subaru has. I think Gladiator Island had a very fun dynamic between Al, who has the ability but no desire to change things, and Hubilk, who has no strength but really wants to improve his life. In fact, there are some similarities between Hubilk and Subaru, and it makes sense why Al was so disillusioned with Subaru's plans of grandeur when he already saw this revolution fail, as well as many other times in his life where likely these types of things didn't go very well. Al isn't optimistic or hopeful. He sees things as they are, or at least how he perceives them to be, and he doesn't really think that people can improve, as the narrator states here. It wasn't because of his one arm, it wasn't because of his age, it was more fundamental, something to do with the basic makeup of a living being. The strong were strong because they were born strong, the weak were weak because they were born weak. Nothing more, nothing less. Maybe that's what attracted him to Priscilla, as he just saw that she was a natural born winner, but maybe that's just me reading way too much into this. Overall, X5 was great. I love seeing Priscilla's childhood and this little piece of Al's backstory. I do hope that moving forward the author doesn't go too overboard on Vincent's Machiavellian plans, as in this case I think it backfired a little bit. Despite that little hiccup, I will say that X5 was more consistently interesting than X4, as X4's second chapter was an okay character exploration of Julius, but here the second chapter, the Gladiator Island chapter, is very interesting. My final nitpick is that Serena is a total babe and she was built up as this awesome character and she ended up doing nothing, which I know it's in character that Priscilla hogs all of the spotlight, but still I would have liked Serena to at least contribute or something. Anyway, thanks a lot for watching this video and thanks for watching these X volume reviews. I will be away for 2 to 3 weeks, so when I come back I hope that volume 22 has arrived, and after I review that I will decide what to do moving forward with this channel, so look forward to that. Thanks for watching, be sure to like and subscribe and all of the good stuff, and bye bye.